And we are live. My mic is peaking a bit. Let me bring this back. Damn. I could turn it down. There we go. That should be better. All right. So, how to choose the right coding bootcamp for you. I have lost count the number of times that I've heard that people are struggling to find a coding bootcamp. I've lost count of the number of times of people just asking me for their my top choice, my top list, because they've spent hours and hours and hours trying to find a coding bootcamp. And I get it. It can be very overwhelming. A lot of information out there. And I think people tend to gravitate towards a paralysis because of all of the information. So I am going to help narrow down how you should prioritize choosing the coding bootcamp for you. There is no top coding bootcamp. Like, simple answer, there is no top coding bootcamp. I promise you that. Every coding bootcamp is going to be right for someone. That's why I don't answer questions like that. And this live stream might be a response to people asking that question over 100 times of what my top choices are. Maybe, maybe not, but we're going to dive into it. I'm going to do my best to give you a little bit of a guideline. So this is a live Q&A like usual. So it's a little bit more topic focused, right? So I'm going to rant more. I rant and everything I do. I'm going to kind of dive a little bit deeper into each topic, and then I'll kind of just check chat once in a while. But it's more of like a very narrow, specific educational stream. But yeah, if you have questions, I'm going to be looking at chat. Oh, I can't wait to dive into this one. Love your reviews. Can't wait to dive into it. I can't wait either. I appreciate that, Code. Why isn't CodeSmith on there? Can you do one on them? I've been thinking about joining them soon. Thanks. I did a review on CodeSmith already. Definitely check that out. Well, why? I don't know. I just chose like 7 random coding boot camps. Like, okay, I guess I have to specify this. There's no like secret signal I am giving everyone because of the coding bootcamp logos that I chose on the YouTube thumbnail. I promise you that literally means nothing whatsoever. In fact, I'm probably going to do a better thumbnail. I'm going to add more coding bootcamps on it afterwards because that thumbnail is crap. A lot of my thumbnails are bad, but that one, I feel like I rushed it a bit. So what is your top coding bootcamp? Haha, Vivian, get the hell out of here. Sebastian started Dev Mountain this week. Apparently they changed their teaching structure from their last cohort. So far I really liked it, and their remote lessons have been pretty good. I recommend it. Okay, thank you, Sebastian. All right, let's dive into it. So I have a podcast episode coming out soon. Next week, in fact, that I think will also be a good one to watch, especially if you are considering self-taught or coding bootcamps. But before you sign up for a coding bootcamp, because I think people do this prematurely, you need to figure out what you love about coding. You got to explore it first. You got to do some tutorials. You got to build your own projects. Not big, complex projects, but like really simple, basic projects. You know, if you're learning HTML and CSS, try building a basic landing page, right? But more importantly, you have to figure out your reason why you're getting into coding in the first place. That's crucial, because, you know, sometimes it's just because you're like, I want to build, you know, like all these mobile apps that I use, I think it'd be really cool to be able to build one. What if I could make a profession out of it? That would be interesting. You can go down those train of thoughts and explore that. That's great. But then, you know, 95% of coding bootcamps are web development focused. So, you know, and then I see like people that want to get into mobile development, like jumping into web development first. And they're like, oh yeah, this is going to be a gateway, a window into it. It's like, I don't think they realize how competitive the entry level market is for web developers, and, you know, how long it's truly going to take to really get some depth in your knowledge and network. And like, you go to a web development coding bootcamp to become a web developer. That's all I want to say about that, because you can, there are coding, there are mobile focused programs, there are even like back-end focused programs, there are even desktop application focused programs. Go into, and that might not even be a coding bootcamp, but you have to figure out like why Okay, let's go back. You have to figure out why you even enjoy coding in the first place. Don't just go to a coding bootcamp because someone says, this is a really good coding bootcamp and you're going to become a software engineer from it. Like, do you know how many people sign up for coding boot camps, go into tons of debt for that, and then don't end up getting a job? A lot of people drop out of coding boot camps because they realize, I don't actually like coding, or I actually like mobile development. I actually, you know what? Data science might be for me instead. And like, if they were to just explore a lot of free and cheap resources in the beginning, they could have avoided all of that debt. And I hate seeing people go into debt. It breaks my heart. And at least in the United States, it is a habit that is rewarded in our society. You get better credit for going into debt. It is the most obnoxious, destructive system for individuals. It's ridiculous. So figure out if you even like coding. Figure out, explore a couple different paths. You don't need to like learn, okay, I'm going to build a mobile app, then I'm going to build a desktop app, then I'm going to do a web development. You could look up YouTube videos. You could figure out, look up people that share, like mobile developers that share, you know, what it was like becoming a mobile developer, what it's like being a mobile developer. Get that window. That's important. We're going to be skipping a lot of songs here, I'm sure. But yeah, just get a feel for it before you sign up, right? Try free resources, try the self-taught path a little bit, get a feel for it, get confident with it, because that, if you are ultimately going to go to a coding bootcamp, that is going to give you insight into the stack that you're going to be learning. It'll give you, it's a piece of figuring out that stack. It's a piece of figuring out the coding bootcamp that's going to deliver you into the right positions where you're going to be working on projects and with technologies that excite you, right? That got you super excited about coding. So, you know, another caveat of that is if you're getting into software engineering just for the money, good luck. Probably not going to become a software engineer. I hate to tell you, but it's the truth. You have to explore it. You have to figure out what you love about it. You have to figure out if you even enjoy the frustrations that come along with it. But again, this is live now. I got an episode coming out next week on Monday. Dive into this a bit more. It's a good episode. I think you're going to enjoy it. So now you know a coding bootcamp is the right choice for you because you tried the self-taught path. Because you figured out that you just never really had good teaching and training to build really strong habits, really strong scheduling habits, and being able to assess your growth and being like time management and all of that comes in self-discipline, like all of that comes with being successful in the self-taught path. You realize I might need some help with that, right? So you decide a coding bootcamp is the right choice. It can accelerate the education, but now you have a lot of different top lists, many of which are receive funds for listing a lot of the coding bootcamps, and there are different ways that connections and contracts can be formed, even if it's not purely monetary. Don't trust top lists, just don't do it. And don't trust reviews, online reviews. I'm gonna explain why a little bit. I've dove into this topic. I think like 5 reasons why coding bootcamps lie to you. I talked about the reviews thing. That was one instance of why you shouldn't trust reviews, but it was one that people really never even thought of. But we're gonna dive into that more. So you figured out you want to go the coding bootcamp route. So what do? Panic. It's overwhelming. No, you don't panic. The very first step that you do, open up a spreadsheet, open up a Google sheet. Look at the closest kind of big city to you that has a lot of tech jobs, a lot of coding jobs, a lot of software engineering jobs. And literally just list out those technologies on the spreadsheet. And if you start getting duplicates, you tally those up. Right? Figure out what companies near you are hiring for, right? So you have an idea, like if you want to get into web development, you know, maybe you're not going to learn Swift, right? So you can at least cross that off your list. But if you want to get into web development, like you could easily look at, okay, what are some stacks where I could do web development? What are the most popular stacks? And then, you know, compare that with the stacks that companies are requiring for web development positions in your local area. Do that with 100 job postings, tally it up, get a feel for what companies are hiring for. Do not trust that you're going to get an out-of-state job. Even if you're remote, it's still a bit rare, and definitely as an entry-level developer, do not trust that you are going to get a purely remote job. Just don't bank on that. Look at your closest big city of companies that will hire in person. Tally those technologies up. That should easily, like a lot of people haven't even done this, that should easily start narrowing down like your top list, because you've probably come up with a list of coding bootcamps that sound interesting. That alone will start narrowing coding bootcamps down, right? And what you can do with admissions in coding bootcamps, you can ask like, well, you don't even have to ask. You can look on LinkedIn and see where graduates of coding bootcamps, like go to the coding bootcamp website, their profile, the education profile on LinkedIn, go to the alumni tab, literally just load up 100 alumni. See, okay, here are the people that graduated. How long is it taking them to get jobs? How long is it, or like what jobs are they actually getting? Where are they moving in the industry? You could start investigating that yourself, but yeah, talk to admissions and challenge them, because every coding bootcamp, like if you want to become a front-end developer, just because a program teaches full stack doesn't mean they create evenly distributed skills across the full stack, right? A lot of coding bootcamps, I would argue every single coding bootcamp either is stronger on the front end or on the back end. And when you understand that, you can push admissions to really figure out which is it stronger on, right? Like, for example, Full Stack Academy, the one I went to, again, this is a long time ago, so this isn't my current review for it, but they're much more stronger on the back end, very weak at the front end. I got a job in front end specifically because I spent a lot of time on that front end learning, and like a year and a half before I went to the coding bootcamp. But that alone should narrow a lot of coding bootcamps. So we're going to pause there. I can see chat flowing a little bit. And like I said, if you have questions, if you have comments, post them in chat. We'll keep going. I got a long outline. It's probably going to be a full hour and a half, maybe. We'll see. But I have a lot to say about this. I only trust your bootcamp reviews. I appreciate that, Butterpants. I'm going to dive into that a little bit with the reviews, because there are ways to get the truth. And I definitely want to touch on this, because I always teach people, do not trust reviews on sites like Course Report, Career Karma, etc. And there's a reason why. It's not because these sites are trying to deceive you, but there are really misaligned, dishonest incentives that coding bootcamps will push out to get good reviews publicly posted, and negative reviews kind of like just pushed to an internal path. Like, we want your feedback, so here's another survey that doesn't lead you to this public review site. Here you go, right? And so that happens. It happens more often than you think, but we'll dive into that in a bit. Currently in the full stack program at New Camp and love it. Awesome, Ricardo. Hope it's going well. Ignore my review. Okay, I'll ignore your review. And thankful, kind of regret it, to be honest. Should have done New Camp. Sebastian, he's busy talking. Don't be afraid to reach out to alums either. I've received multiple DMs from people looking into the bootcamp I went to. Anthony, I completely agree. I had prior knowledge, but did the web fundamental. Okay, I'm considering. All right, cool. We have a lot to talk about. The fact that I can make an entire live stream about it. I even watched a few YouTube videos that are like 10-15 minutes long talking about like how to choose the right coding bootcamp. There's no depth to them. There's a lot of depth to this. There's a reason why people feel so overwhelmed. There's a reason why I have an audience in the first place. Coding bootcamps are a very convoluted space, very profit hungry space. And there's a lot of complexity to it, unfortunately. There shouldn't be, but there is. It's non-traditional education, few regulations. All right, so let's dive into it a little bit further. So figure out, like when you get those top, 2 or 3 stacks, I would say top 2 stacks, figure out like what's marketable. You can look up salary ranges and stuff like that for the stacks. You could do this on, I believe, like Glassdoor and tons of other websites that'll give you an insight into the salary that you potentially could be making. I don't know if Glassdoor is specific to the language, but there are websites that are. So next step, and this is where I'm going to try to reduce the cussing just a little bit because I want my videos to get pushed out there. This is where people get screwed over big time, is the financial situation. They do not plan for it, and it destroys them. And it's not always their fault. It's because the coding bootcamp guarantees a job in 3 months. It guarantees a job in 6 months, and quote unquote guarantees. So coding bootcamps, if you're going to a solid coding bootcamp, I usually tell people it might take about a year, at least a year, to get that job. I don't care what program it is, and I think a lot of programs, like if you want to know some details about like some of the ways coding bootcamps can mess with the numbers a little bit to make it seem like you're going to get a job faster, more people graduate, etc., watch my video with Vincent. I don't even remember the title of the video. It's what did I title it? I don't know. I'm actually going to look that up because this one's important. YouTube. Boom, boom, boom. Let's go watch the video titled Lambda School and the Future of Coding Bootcamps, right? We dove into that a bit, but this is like never, ever, 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 ever trust self-claimed outcomes, ever. And now with, I guess I'm jumping ahead a little bit, and I'll touch on this again, but SIR.org, like there now no companies you're seeing no reports for 2021. I heard some news about the CEO. I never confirmed if it's true or not, but I heard the CEO had left. And coding bootcamps were already bouncing out. Once the pandemic hit, coding bootcamps are like, nope, I'm not showing my stats with the SIR's regulations. And look at all the coding bootcamps that jumped out of that. Look at all the coding bootcamps decided, you know what? This year, we're just gonna withhold that data, and we'll just post, internal data. We'll be transparent. We'll share with you how good our students are doing. Never trust self-claimed outcomes. We need a third party. We need regulation for it. We don't have it, unfortunately. That's the big, unfortunate part about the coding bootcamp industry right now. Never trust it, ever. But a lot of people will base their financial situation and their financial plans based on the promises that you're going to get a job faster than you probably will, right? And so what I usually recommend is be able to afford the coding bootcamp and at least a year's worth of rent. All of your bills are paid. If you can do that, you are looking pretty good and better than most students. I'm telling you, with that financial pressure on your shoulder, it often people are like, yeah, I want that fire under my butt. Financial pressure is not a fire you want. There are a lot of fires you can light under your butt. Financial pressure is a weight that helps very, very few people. You have to plan out your finances before you choose a coding bootcamp. That also means, that might mean staying at your current job, looking at part-time opportunities in the coding bootcamp. And in my opinion, most people probably should be going the part-time route over the full-time, because a lot of the people that I talk to at full-time, they don't have that financial backing. And then it's a deeper conversation of, okay, now what do we do? All right, let me catch up with chat. I see it flowing a bit. This is a good topic though. I'm literally, I'm 25% in. Yeah, only 25% in to my outline. Oh, you thought it was funny because you left a review and then told us to ignore reviews. It doesn't. So that's the thing. It's like, yes, there can be reviews that are honest and accurate. It's not that the reviews themselves aren't accurate. It's that a lot of the negative reviews usually get withheld for a lot of different reasons. Do you know how hard it is to bring someone on that had a negative experience onto my podcast? They exist in every single program. I've had programs tell me, where are the negative reviews? I promise you they are in my DMs. And I've tried to encourage people, let's speak up. Let's bring you on the podcast. No. I don't want to look bad when I'm applying to companies. I don't want the drama. Like, there are so many reasons. Understandably, people don't share those negative reviews, aside from coding boot camps kind of like gatekeeping those negative reviews and just making them internal. But they exist. The problem is the reviews on a lot of those websites, it's not that they're necessarily fake reviews, it's that they're not representative of the real experience of the program. And that's the unfortunate part. But I'm glad you found some humor in that, Sebastian. Currently doing the self-taught route with learning the fundamentals, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but it's definitely a lot to take in. It definitely is. Hopefully I get there soon. You will, Castell, you will. Did General Assembly, loved it, but I did self-learning for 1.5 years prior, but my friend had to switch classes because his instructor was not good. And that happens. I wish more truth like that came out, but that definitely happens. My bootcamp is docs.microsoft.com. Okay. Highly recommend pinging alumni, and specifically those who had a similar background to you going in. Some boot camps encourage strong students to not include the boot camp on their LinkedIn, though. Yep, Michael, that's a really crucial piece. Yeah, that's a whole other thing. So what you can do, and I fully believe this, it's completely deceptive, it's dishonest. Some people will put the coding boot camp as work experience, like they were a software engineer at that company when it was just a coding bootcamp, and they flip it from education to experience. It's dishonest, but you can also find people that way. Just keep in mind that coding bootcamp might be listed as experience. I think few coding bootcamps do that, fortunately, but that is another way, another thing to look for. Should I go to a bootcamp that has a women's scholarship? Sounds too good to be true. No, that's true, Leslie. That exists. Yeah, if it's a scholarship, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it's a scholarship, just look at it as just financial assistance, but don't, like, that should not determine like the quality of the program. Does that make sense? So yeah, that additional money does exist for people, though. What's your opinion on new CS grads attending boot camps to find a job, or do you recommend just self-learning at the point? I couldn't self-learn that much in college due to family responsibilities. It's up to you, right? So if you have that self-discipline, you have that drive, you have time management, and you can self-assess your growth as a software engineer, or you're, good with networking, and you can even connect with other software engineers to assess your growth. That's really good. But you have to play that by ear. It all depends on you and your personality. Happy Wednesday to you as well, Richard. Given a boot camp is a lot of people's first coding training experience, it's hard to rely on objective judgments. Try to collect factual data, like where did instructors work and for how many years. That's another really good thing to look. Like all of Don's reviews do. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's good advice. Definitely watch Don's reviews. Great advice. Starting new camp in February. Good luck. All right. Cool. All right. 25% in. Let's dive further. All right. So figure out that financial situation. So you have ISA contracts as well. You have payment plans. You have refund policies. The thing about it is, and even for the boogeyman of coding boot camps, which is Lambda, because that often gets brought up in my community, that still can be one of the best choices for students, given that you fully understand the contract, right? Like a lot of the controversy came from the ISA and, other things. But if you fully understand the contract that you are signing, and you are making, you've planned out your finances, you are making an educated decision that is determining like, okay, like it's basically, you're just determining risk and reward, and you're determining like how much risk you're really taking in. As long as you understand those contracts, that comes with ISAs, that comes with refund policies, job guarantees, even just like standard payment plans and stuff like that. As long as you understand what you are signing, and you are a solid financial planner, which you should become before you choose a coding bootcamp. This is a big expense. that, and like you could look for scholarships, stuff like that, but just read your contracts, understand fully what you're getting yourself into. Like, for example, you know, an ISA that a student shared, essentially the ISA, like it bumped the price up that the student had to pay, but it was pre-tax, right? So it actually upped the price that he had to pay a lot more than what he had estimated. So with that said, yeah, do your investigation. Just make sure you have a solid financial plan, and you have to essentially say, I'm willing to risk that I'm going to get a job for the amount of money that I'm paying. You're always taking a risk in, always, 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 always. And every contract will list that. Most people don't understand that. So make a top list, make a top 10, narrow it to 5, narrow it to 3. How can you do that? Buy the tech stack. We talked about, you know, how to choose that tech stack, figure out even if you like web development, do you like mobile development, like there are ways to even explore all those things without diving super deep into any of them. And we talked about that, right? And then you have to decide, like we talked about, part-time versus full-time. Full-time, you are quitting your job. Do not try to hold a job and do full-time. Please, please do not do that. I feel so bad for people that quickly get overwhelmed with that. Do not do that. There are people that join part-time programs that quickly get overwhelmed with a full-time job. Don't join a full-time program and keep your job. A good coding bootcamp is going to like completely reject you as a student if you do that. There are some coding bootcamps that will accept you. Don't do that, please. Oh, did I say please enough? Please don't do that. With a part-time, it can be a little bit more realistic, right? And usually with full-time, often what happens to be able to retain the information, people are worried, oh, I'm going too fast, I'm not going to learn everything. It's going to feel like you're not learning everything. And then you take like a month to like really dive deep into a personal project, you apply everything, things start clicking in after a full-time program. It happens. Just because a student feels like they're not learning everything just means they're not really solidifying it deep in a memory and like able to recall it very easily, because they don't have a lot of contextual situations to be able to pull that information from and apply it to. So usually like full-time program, you can learn everything. It's going to be very jumbled and you have to apply it afterwards. You have to apply it right after the coding bootcamp. Don't take breaks, apply it, reinforce it. Or a part-time program gives your brain more time, or gives your pockets a little bit of cushion, right? You can keep a job, keep a full-time job, which in this economy right now, 98% of people, we're going to bump it up to 99% of people should probably keep their job while they're going to a coding bootcamp. Forgot what I was going to say. With a part-time program, it also, like, it helps your finances, but it also gives your brain a chance to like really consolidate a lot of what you just learned, right? And a lot of the learning comes even after the coding bootcamp, right? It's kind of thinking about it while you're eating, and you should learn to shut your mind off, because this is going to quickly become overwhelming, but it's fairly natural many times. Like, get done with coding and you're still thinking about it, or you think about something at night, and it gives your brain more time to process everything. And then you wake up, fresh perspective. This is like a golden nugget of advice for developers that are just starting. They're like, I don't know how I'm gonna like learn everything in this huge code base. It's like, get a good night's sleep, tackle the problem, and get a good night's sleep. When you sleep, you wake up, your perspective changes, right? Every single hour, all the steps that you take in each day, it starts solidifying this more narrow perspective you use that narrow perspective to tackle all of your problems for the rest of the day, right? And what a good night's sleep does is it allows your mind to kind of unwind. It untangles. If you give yourself a break, some people will literally like lose sleep and think about it all night, and that's not what you want to do. You want to get a good night's sleep, your brain untangles, and you have a fresh new perspective that doesn't have all of these constraints about how you are going to think about things and tackle problems, right? So a part-time program spreads out the amount of education that you're learning, larger space, length of time, and it gives your brain more time to process it. Now, the problem is with part-time, you have to understand, like, just doing the minimum part-time and not working on your own project. Sometimes part-time programs can extend like 9 months, a year, etc., and past a year. And then you're not really, like, if you learn something, even if you apply it and then you don't go over it for like a year, you're going to forget it. Like, you can't most of our memories aren't just, I don't know, they're not just like a dictionary or a map where we could just easily look things up. We get that like same depth of knowledge that we had when we applied it a year ago. It just doesn't happen, right? You have to use it or you lose it. Like that saying is very true for software engineers. So for part-time, you probably are going to be doing a little bit more than what you're required to do. And that's also, you have to count that into your hours. But you can already see, like, to be a successful part-time student, it's like, you're probably going to be putting more than just like 10, 15, 20 hours into your week. And that, you know, that's a lot in itself. So it really goes to show, it's like full-time immersive programs are really, really intense and difficult for a lot of different reasons. So you can consider part-time or full-time, right? And consider in-person or remote. There are coding bootcamps that teach in person now. So I'm telling you right now, the in-person experience is almost always better than remote. It just is. It just is. And a lot of coding bootcamps wouldn't drop their price for remote when they switched all to remote, which I think was very dishonest to do. It definitely wasn't an honest decision. It was more of a business decision. But yeah, I think remote experience is horrible. I don't like, we could go into an in-depth conversation about like even just the effectiveness and productivity of remote engineers, and it's less. I guarantee you it's less. And I have a strong stance against that, and not against it. I'm actually for remote work, but I do think you have to combat a lot of self-discipline and productivity and just a lot of other things that go with working with an office. But that's a whole other conversation. Anyways, choose in person or remote, whatever you think is going to be best for you. Remote allows you to get access to more opportunities, right? Across the country, even in different countries. In person, a lot of people find that a lot of this information is solidified a lot easier in person, and the interactions with the instructors, with the other students, the pair programming, it's way different. It's a better experience in person. So it's why a lot of people prefer in person. Most people that I talk to in my one-on-ones, they are looking for in person. We got to like help them figure out how to narrow that down. So cool. Okay, we'll pause there. Let me catch up with chat. I've never heard of cultivating coders, Nolan. Which should I select, full-time or part-time? Hopefully that gave you some context. Thanks, Don. Your vids helped a lot. Glad to hear that, Jordan. You're welcome. Doing self-study, but currently having a demanding full-time job and 2 toddlers at home. Starting to feel like I'm at least 2 years away from being able to switch careers. And you might be. So that's another thing. Self-taught path, I would estimate about 2 years. People are like, what? People are saying you're going to get a job in 6 months, 9 months, a year. Bullshit. Most self-developers don't even become developers, right? Because they start with unrealistic expectations. I think that's a big thing. Like, you start with unrealistic expectations, it's very easy to get depressed, ashamed, and kind of ashamed that you're not smart enough to be able to accomplish this, right? You're not good enough of a software engineer. Maybe it's not for you. And a lot of people have these thoughts at like the end of year 1, they're disappointed they haven't found a job yet. It's like we're in the middle of a pandemic. Inflation is at an all-time high. What, in the last like 40 years? It's never been this high. It's okay that you haven't found a job with self-taught within a year. It's completely okay, and it's normal. And the unfortunate part, like, as long as you financially plan for those 2 years, it's okay. Like, you're going to save a lot of money. It depends. Rent can cost a lot. Your bills can stack up. So you're just going to have to calculate the most financial viable option. But with self-taught, it can take up to 2 years. And that's okay. Give yourself a little bit of time. Give yourself a little bit of patience. Where do you see the job market in the next 2 to 3 years? Let's talk about that on Friday. That's a good question for Friday. Is it harder to find a job as a back-end dev if you're brand new to the industry? No. Nah. I would argue a lot of people disagree with me on that, but no, I don't think it is. I just think a lot of people focus on the wrong things to be able to become a back-end dev. And I would argue it's like a lot of coding boot camps that like claim to try to like push software engineers into back-end development. You know, they don't even touch AWS or any sort of third-party hosting like that. They just like will dip onto Heroku, and there are things that you could do to stand out if your goal is to strictly become like a back-end developer, right? And okay, let's continue forward. Let's see. So how do you choose a coding bootcamp? What do you look for? You know, you have to figure out the reasons why you decided not to go the self-taught path. Was it because you couldn't trust a solid curriculum to teach you everything that you needed to learn? Was it, are you just like, do you just want mentors, like actual software engineers to bounce your ideas off of, to review your code, right? So, do you, well, okay, we'll go through a couple more. Like, do you want to pair program? Do you want to work with other aspiring developers and build more complex projects as a group? Do you want that experience? Do you want the job support? Like once you do finally have some projects up, do you need help navigating the job search landscape, right? Do you want resume reviews? Do you want LinkedIn profile reviews? Do you kind of want a job strategy to go through? Do you want to learn how to network? Do you want companies to hand you jobs, right? A lot of people go into coding boot camps expecting like career services to like have all these connections in the space and be able to kind of link you to the right companies. And sometimes that can't happen, but I'm telling you, do not go to a coding bootcamp for that reason. The reality that usually happens is like the market is so oversaturated. A lot of these companies that create connections, a lot of them will recruit the TAs or recruit people that are like extreme top of the class, and that have tons of experience before them, right? Have a CS degree before that. It's like a lot of these connections that are created are usually going to go to people with that type of experience. I don't think it's that offering that value is going to be valuable for the average student. And it's kind of rare nowadays too. A lot of like your job fairs and stuff like that, and where like Full Stack Academy, for example, had us, this is a long time ago, but Full Stack Academy had us go around with hiring managers, and we just did kind of mock interviews. And if the company did hire us or they did like us, they might extend an offer. And pretty much like I talked to some of the TAs as well, like a lot of those jobs, I would say like most of those jobs, those offerings were handed to people that went through the program twice as like a TA. And they were helping the instructors teach the curriculum, or they had tons of previous experience. They had like previous software engineering experience. And that was like back a long time ago. Now I'm just hearing tons of coding bootcamps tossing that out the window and just treating it like mock interviews. It's not an actual interview. So those were actual interviews, but now companies are just like, now coding bootcamps are just saying, we'll do mock interviews, get you that experience, which is valuable in itself, but I wouldn't trust a company saying like, we're going to put you in front of companies. That's a promise that's often under-delivered. So you have to think about like, what holes in your self-taught path are you trying to fill with the coding bootcamp? Right? That's why you're willing to spend thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. Figure that out. And you can only figure that out if you try the self-taught path. If you try learning through some tutorials, if you try building some projects, what are you lacking? What are you struggling? Where are your doubts coming from? You have to explore a little bit before you join a coding bootcamp to figure that out. Because then you could start talking to admissions. You could start talking to graduates, like message them on LinkedIn. Hey, you know, what do you really think about like the instructors? Did you have any bad ones? What were those experiences like? I find the most interesting conversations happen with asking the hard-hitting questions and digging right into those negative experiences. It's like all we see are just nothing but positive experiences about every coding bootcamp, and every coding bootcamp is perfect. We never hear about those negative experiences. Like there is a plethora, is that the word? Plethora? I can't even say that word, of positive experiences. There's no lack of it. You could literally look at tons of review sites for that kind of stuff. But you want to dig into like, okay, where did this student struggle in this program? Why did they struggle? What kind of background did they have? Like, what kind of experience did they have that potentially caused them to struggle and not be as successful in this program? And you want to start trying to figure out like how to identify with people in these programs that have a similar background that might share with you that you might face similar struggles, right? That's why you got to reach out to students specifically. But yeah, figure out why you chose a coding bootcamp. That's incredibly important. And start asking the hard-hitting questions to admissions. If admissions can't admit, if they can't be vulnerable, they can't admit some of their flaws of the program, that's a red flag. Run the hell away from a program like that. If an admissions is just sales, run the hell away from a program like that. I'm telling you, that is one of the biggest red flags you will ever find at a coding bootcamp. And a lot of people think, well, some of their staff are admitting, there are some flaws in the program. I am telling you, that coding bootcamp, those staff truly care about the students. And very often there's a lot of complexity that goes on with curriculum decision, and like even Full Stack Academy, like would have tons of instructors review the content, approve of it. Why does my screen go to sleep? I don't even have it set. Okay, there we go. But to me, it's like, that's a program I find that, like, if instructors are willing to say, yeah, this isn't that good, we have to improve it. Like, those are instructors that actually will probably put the energy and care about improving those things, right? When they just masquerade this, or just create like this show that's completely fake. It's essentially what it is. It's a show of what the coding bootcamp is. It's a presentation of what the coding bootcamp is. It's like, that's not a coding bootcamp that's going to address a lot of their problems. It just isn't. I'm sorry. Like, I 100% would look for admissions that are willing to admit to some of this stuff. And hopefully they're saying, but, we have a plan in place to improve that. But you have to ask those hard-hitting questions, and they should be tailored to the gaps that you're trying to fill going to coding bootcamp that self-taught path didn't fill. Okay, we'll pause there. I'm about 60% in, 65, maybe 70% of the way in. So any questions about anything that I just said? Doing a part-time remote, how would you deal with the disadvantage of not being a school in person? Be the person that connects with students. Be the person that sets up like after hours, even like after hours Among Us games, right? Just to break the ice, because I think there's a lot of, it's already hard enough to break the ice for a lot of people. A lot of people are introverted and, in person, right? You're sitting right next to someone else, but for some reason, our society has done a horrible job at like building confidence in people. And you can't even talk to someone like 2 feet away from you. And like, that's a challenge for a lot of people in itself. And I'm laughing because I've been shy a good chunk of my life. And I've done that a good chunk of my life. So, but like, with remote, it's even more like you're going through this program with other students, but they don't like seem like other students. Like it's kind of like a depersonalization effect of like, because they're remote, you don't really see their faces. It's a really weird experience to do entirely remote. It's unnatural. It's also a good thing because it creates more opportunities, but it also feels very, very unnatural because it is unnatural. And you have to take the initiative to reach out to other students, do Among Us games, do like pair programming, and, like do challenges with other people, and like hop on Zoom. Don't disable your video. Audio's not good enough. Enable that video. I'm telling you, like, look at each other's faces and take that initiative to be that person that does that. And if you can do that, I've met a lot of introverted people that do that in coding boot camps, and they do not regret it whatsoever. It's always scary to take that initiative, create groups, after hours groups and stuff like that. But I'm telling you, those people do it because they were shy. They do it to force themselves out of shyness, and then they learn to love it. Because those are the people, I'm telling you, people that take initiatives, social initiatives especially, are loved by companies. They're loved by companies. Just try to, like, I am naturally, believe it or not, I am naturally introverted. No one ever believes me when I say this, but I am very naturally introverted. And over years, I kind of just built up and I've gotten out of that shell. But I would say that is probably key for a lot of remote programs. So, if you really value that in-person experience, don't just do like self-paced programs either, because that's even harder to connect with people. And a lot of people with self-paced programs, they probably, have a lot of other stuff going on, a lot of responsibilities. So maybe you do a remote, but it's not self-paced. It's we have live lectures. Look for live lectures. And that can kind of help substitute that experience that you would get with in person. All right. Okay, a lot of questions. I'll go through a few. I am skipping a lot. If I miss your question, feel free to ask it on Friday. Kind of just trying to sift through relevant questions. What do I think about coding bootcamps partnered with universities? Quality often goes down. I've never seen a university buy a program up and the quality goes up of that program. I've never seen that. Quality often goes down. How to network without going to a coding bootcamp. I actually, Blog Life, I have an episode coming out. We dive into that topic. It'll be coming out next Monday, so look out for that. Plethora. Plethora is the word. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Tommy. And hello. Welcome, everyone that's new. And for these live Q&As, very topic focused. I will skip some questions and comments in chat a little bit, but like if you just are dying to ask me a question, ask in the Friday live Q&A, same time, 1:30 Central Time, where it's just like completely open-ended. What are some of the hard questions? I will actually get into some of those, but questions about like, I asked, like, are you really stronger on the front end or back end? You could even ask, I would look them up afterwards, but like, do your instructors have real software engineer experience? What about your TAs? Do you, like, what's your teaching style? Does the teacher, if someone's stuck, do they wait 30 minutes to help them out? Do they jump in quickly? Or is it like really hands off where they kind of expect you to do a lot of Googling? There are a lot of like questions you can ask, and you're gonna have to. There are lists of questions that you could search on Google and stuff like that, but a lot of it's going to be relevant to what the coding bootcamps are substituting for you. Those are probably the areas I would focus your questions on. But we'll dive into it a little bit. I think I have more. What question would you have asked if you could go back to when you attended? Ooh, that's a really good question. I don't think I would have gotten an answer for this. Give me a profile of the person that's usually your most successful student. And if you have several students, give me the last 3 that were top of the class. What did they do? What did they do well? What kind of personality did they have? I think I would try to figure out what personality and background is very successful in a program like this. Because each coding bootcamp has a different culture. It does. What is a really hard question you asked at bootcamp and they give you a good answer? I haven't. Unfortunately, I didn't ask when I was going a long time ago. When I signed up for coding bootcamp, I didn't ask any hard-hitting questions. I should have. I lucked out because I did choose it was a pretty good program back then. But yeah, I didn't ask those hard-hitting questions. So I'm telling you guys to ask them. Don't make my mistakes. Don't repeat them. Can you remember some questions you asked your mentor when you were at Full Stack Academy? I asked, Usually, so when you go through a course, you have a live lecture, usually it's teaching you like this happy path, a happy flow of like how to write all the code and how to make your application do what you're trying to make it do, right? And so a lot of the questions I would challenge with are like these weird edge cases, like edge cases. What would happen if I did this, right? And if an instructor can't kind of, they can't be flexible enough to account for that and share that, that worries me that maybe they haven't had a lot of experience in the software engineering industry, or it's a skill they just maybe they're not used to that question. But your instructor should be able to account for those edge cases. But like you don't want to go overboard and be that student that asks for like 10 edge cases and now the live lecture went from 30 minutes to an hour. It's like, okay, you're obnoxious at that point. Like, some people claim I'm getting my money's worth. It's like, well, think about the other students. Maybe like ask after the lecture, right? Maybe ask a TA after the lecture. Like you can be a little bit socially responsible with your interactions with other students and be empathetic towards their time. But with that said, a quick edge case, if it comes up, to help you better contextualize like what you're trying to learn, because the more context that you can apply that solution to, that convention to, that code to, the more it's going to solidify in your mind. So providing those edge cases to instructors and seeing if they handle that well, that's huge. That's what I did. This is a nice mic. Esther, I'm glad you think so. Different mic. I think it's a better mic. I'm not a fan of the Blue Yeti anymore. I was never a fan of it, but yeah, I was just kind of saving up as much as I could. But I like this mic, the Shure SM7B, because it has kind of a bass to it. Definitely has a bass to it. I love that. It's like a radio voice. I used to work in the medical field and didn't like it. I'm trying to join a boot camp for the money and job security. Is that bad? Nolan, figure out if you like it. It's okay to like have that initial aspiration, like I just want to change careers, but you have to explore it a bit. You have to figure out if you like it. You have to figure out if you could sit there for 3 hours and like really dig deep, get frustrated, have that aha moment. You're like, all right, I kind of want to do it again, right? Maybe not today, maybe tomorrow because I'm worn out, but you have to figure that out in yourself. So it's okay to have that initial reason, but it's not gonna propel you through the long run of trying to finally get that position. Thanks, Don. You rock. No, you rock, I go. You rock. Kenzie in 2022? I don't know code. I don't know. If enough people request it, sure. That's a great answer to the question, Don. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. Welcome back. It's a good question. What standout qualities did some of the most successful students have? It's not like I think most are going to, I don't know, like a strategic response to that of like any admissions is gonna be like, hey, we can make anyone successful. Not anyone successful, but like a variety of personalities and background, and like you get this like generic inclusive mantra. It's like, okay, you didn't really answer my question. It's like I kind of just want to know if I'm going to be successful in the program, and you have to poke and dig a little bit. Leon, what 3 coding bootcamps strike me as being the strongest nowadays? Please watch the beginning of my video, please. Where do you think coding bootcamps are weak compared to traditional CS degree? I keep mentioning it, but in my podcast episode on Monday, we dove into that as well. I think like the more I think about it, we answered a lot of questions. But typically against a CS degree is very generic. You can take a CS degree into like a lot of different fields, where if you want to go into web development, if you want to go into software engineering, like the problem is a lot of CS degrees don't teach practical knowledge to get into web development. And so you have to supplement tons when you come out. And that's been mentioned several times on my podcast from hiring managers, etc. Yeah, coding bootcamp, I mean, sometimes it depends on the coding bootcamp too. It can lack on fundamentals. It can lack on giving students enough time to like really dive into personal projects and solidify everything. And Sometimes it's just the time crunch of coding boot camps that hurt people. I feel like that's a pretty in-depth topic, though. There's a lot we could go into. I'll watch the replay, but I look forward to the Friday stream. Much love, everyone. Thanks for joining us, Richard. Just figured out your channel a few days ago. I am planning for software engineering. Still in university. Would love to hear some tips. Love your content, by the way. My channel is full of tips and gel. So join us Friday. If you have any questions, join us Friday. We do an open Q&A. Okay. You guys ready for the last stretch of this? I'm ready. Oh, wait, there are more questions? My chat didn't scroll? There are more questions. Don't lie to me. All right. One more drink. Droid, thank you so much for the $4. Thank you for the super chat. Oh, it doesn't pop up whether it's like a super chat. Maybe it's not a super chat. I don't know. I literally go through this conversation of like, what kind of donation is this YouTube donation? It's literally irrelevant. Droid, thank you for the support. I appreciate you. Okay, so the last bit of it. Where was I? Okay, so we kind of mentioned like reviews. I really touched on the reviews, but I want to re-emphasize this. Oh, I see it. I'm not going to let you interrupt me.
LMAO, this is great, but a lot of the questions asked have been answered in a lot of previous made videos.
True, Gabrielle. Thank you so much for the $10. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the support today. We're starting to get more support each live stream, which is really cool. Seriously, thank you guys. This helps. Like, this actually helps as I'm trying to make this a full-time thing. So thank you so much for the super chat. And that's the tricky thing. It's like, yeah, a lot of these questions do get answered. And a lot of people that are like, okay, I've heard Don answer this over and over and over. I appreciate you being patient. It's just like, as you grow a channel, I can't keep just saying, watch this video, watch this video. I gotta answer questions as I try to grow my live streams and channels and stuff like that. So, but yeah, pretty much every single question here that's been asked, I've answered already. But yeah, thank you for the support. For sure, Droid. All right, last comment, then we dive into it. I am Van. I like your honesty. What is your advice for someone, a beginner who is self-taught journey, how I should come up with hireable projects? That's my concern. I got Monday. Watch the podcast episode. Monday is a good episode. It will answer some of those questions. Look at my self-taught videos. Oh, okay. Last drink, then we do it. So, reviews. I mentioned this before, but there are coding boot camps that have in the past and still do sometimes that will have this policy of, hey, as part of our curriculum, this is a module, go review our coding bootcamp. And you know, what do you think of us? Before you do, what do you think of us? Good rating? Awesome. Go review it. Bad rating? We really care about your feedback. We want you to go ahead and review this. And this is going to go into our internal team. We really care about this, right? No mention of an external link to go post that review whatsoever. They completely rerouted that negative review internally, so no one ever sees it but their staff, right? And maybe they do care. That's great, but students, you should be encouraging students to post all sorts of reviews, right? It comes off as very dishonest and disingenuous when it's just like tons of positive reviews, and like it's one of the most frustrating things I have about the industry. It pisses me off. It does. The coding bootcamps even consider doing this. It's disgusting. But with reviews, right, you can look at a lot of the positive things. Like a lot of those reviews are pretty accurate for the positive experiences, but the negative ones, you have to dig into it. You have to DM people on LinkedIn. And so what I would even do is look for people on LinkedIn that haven't found a job in 6 months, right? DM them. How's it going? What do you think of your experience, right? And like I would even mention, it's like, you know, I just saw tons of positive reviews. It kind of feels like I'm not getting the whole story. You know, do you have any constructive criticism of the program? Things I should maybe look out for? It might not make it right for me, right? Ask those questions and ask them to people that haven't gotten a job in 6 months. You can DM whoever you want, but usually people start getting a little bit frustrated, and then that dreamy, like a lot of people that graduated coding bootcamp, if they had an okay experience at least, excuse me, sometimes they're still in this like dreamy state of like, oh, you know, really happy, got to meet my made a lot of buddies at in my cohort, and you know, instructors were nice, and like, you know, everything's pretty good, it's just gonna take some time. And then like 6 months kicks in, you're like, you know, a lot of other people in the cohort got jobs within 6 months, or they didn't, or it's like a lot of people in my cohort didn't get jobs. It's like we were kind of promised like 80% outcome or job placement rate, 90% job placement rate. What's going on here? This is kind of weird. And it's like, you know what? I remember the instructor kind of blowing me off when I asked like, hey, you know, how many of your students actually get a job within 6 months? And you know, the career services is kind of weird. You know, they were really helpful in the beginning, and I was doing well, I was getting company calls, and now that I'm not doing so well, they're not really reaching out to me. They're not connecting with me. They're not seeing like how things are going. They're kind of dropping off, right? Kind of feeling forgotten. And that can start happening. It can happen at any time, but it can start happening. That dreamy feeling you get about a coding boot camp, that can start going down and down. And usually at about the 6 month mark, people are kind of like, all those realistic thoughts, the ones that kind of pushed away because they were fairly happy with their experience, they start coming back. Ask those people. With reviews, just DM people, right? It also allows them to keep it anonymous. Like, don't do public comments, DM them. I think even like free accounts on LinkedIn get like a certain amount of emails, maybe not. Like, I wouldn't pay like the $60 a month or whatever to be able to get private messages, because I have like a advertising marketing profile on LinkedIn, something similar to that, and I get tons of like mails I could just send to anyone without adding the request. But just add the request and yeah, try to connect with people. Put it in their little note that you just were looking for a little bit of an honest review from them about their coding bootcamp experience. Don't add people on LinkedIn without notes. Do you know how many people I usually reject that do that? Don't do that. Give them some context of why you're adding them. But yeah, you need to talk to real people. That's what it's about. And if you DM'd a few people and it's all positive, I promise you there are negative experiences. You need to find those people. You need a full range of opinions to be able to properly assess whether that program is going to be right for you. Anything else about reviews? No. Let's get into outcomes. I touched on this. Never trust self-claimed outcomes. Ever. There are so many ways that coding bootcamps will exclude success rates from their data. Even Sir.org, which was kind of the gold standard of third-party, not regulation, but just like, what would you call it? Not regulation, but just accountability. Like, are coding bootcamps actually being accurate with what they're saying? They're kind of gone, right? They're not a big part of the industry anymore. And you notice like all those reports stopped in 2020. Now that's gone. So now coding bootcamps even dropped out during the pandemic, and they're like, oh, I don't want to share my numbers, not during this year. And so the coding bootcamps that actually did in 2020, seriously, hats off to you. Those coding bootcamps I have tons of respect for, because it's hard to do that in an industry where a lot of people aren't willing to be transparent like that. It's very hard. Business-wise, profit-wise, it's very hard. I think given that coding boot, like, so let me share this with you. I feel like the coding bootcamp industry in the next 5 years is coming to kind of an end in the amount of profit that a lot of these CEOs are making. The coding bootcamp industry has kind of taken most of the profit that they're going to be getting in the industry. And you're going to see, that's why you see a lot of coding bootcamps being sold to universities and stuff like that. And the universities will typically buy the programs, maybe fire the instructors, maybe keep them. But a lot of this industry is progressing into like, you start realizing a lot of these programs were just up to gain a lot of money, which there's nothing wrong with. They provided a value, they provided a service, but the outcomes are shit. The real outcomes are shit. When you don't exclude students because they missed a homework assignment, because they didn't graduate on time, because they didn't pass a mock interview. When you don't exclude students that decided that your program just wouldn't help them become a software engineer, so they decided to go back to their old industry. There are so many reasons those outcomes are high. There are so many false, deceptive reasons that outcomes are high, even for coding boot camps that you feel like, they're the top coding boot camp. They have the best reputation. I am telling you, some of the top coding boot camps that would be considered the top coding boot camps that you often see in lists, they will have students, they will have super fans, not necessarily like have them, but they'll reward people for being super fans of literally just spamming any negative or spamming responses to any negative review online, right? It's like, I had that happen with different coding boot camps, and I'm not here to really call any specific coding boot camps out. I want to try to avoid doing that because it's just, I'm bored of it. I really am. It's like, just watch my individual reviews at this point. But you would have super fans that would just like constantly, if they detect any negative review on Reddit, on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, it's like they jump in, and you look and their profile is listed on the website, and they are a super fan, and they will destroy any sort of negative reputation whatsoever in a very constructive way. They're not just like bad mouthing the people that are given negative reviews, or like sometimes it's very like pretentious and not antagonist, but patronizing reviews. Well, you just probably didn't think about it this way, right? And here, let me go ahead and explain it for you. It's like I've gotten stuff like that. I've gotten that in my comments. I'm like, oh my God, this literally just made me lose like so much respect for this program. Now I'm going to be way more critical of it. Like, don't send your super fans to do this. But that, in terms of reputation, that can happen. But in terms of outcomes, like there's so many ways to discard data from outcomes. Don't believe like 100%. There are coding bootcamps that claim 100% placement. There are coding bootcamps that claim 90% placement, etc. Those numbers are way too high in a time like this. A more accurate estimate is probably about 60%, to be honest, on average across all coding bootcamps. About 60% within 6 months to a year. Maybe about 6 months. Might be a little bit lower if we're saying 6 months, but don't trust these self-claimed outcomes. I've done video. I'm not going to go into detail about it. I've done videos. Don't trust them. I explained why in several of these videos. And watch the one with Vincent. That was one that we kind of dove into as well. But it's just like, I really want to stress this because people will literally choose a coding bootcamp because they trust that coding bootcamp is going to get the job based on the self-claimed outcomes. It's a mistake. It just is. I see too many people getting screwed over. And the whole reason I told you about the coding bootcamp industry and what it's turning into, now it's like those outcomes are going to become more lies, more deception. That's not the reality of the space and the reality of how many people are getting software engineering jobs from coding bootcamps. This market is completely oversaturated. You will eventually get a software engineering position if you don't give up. But this idea that you're going to be getting like 90% of people are getting it within 6 months after a program is complete bullshit. It is complete bullshit. It's a lie. And way too many people will go into debt because of this promise. Do not trust the outcomes. Please, for the love of God, do not trust these outcomes anymore. If you don't trust these outcomes, now you can look at quality in a different way. Now you can have a different mindset going into the coding bootcamp, and you can say, okay, Don told me not to trust these outcomes, so now I'm going to financially plan for more than what they're saying it's going to take to get a job. And now I'm not going to have this giant weight on my shoulders and panicking because it's like, man, I can't even understand all this stuff that I'm learning in the coding bootcamp, and like, you know, I'm probably not even going to get a job, right? They say I'm supposed to get a job within 3 months, 6 months, and that's what I financially plan. Like, this is scary shit. It's like, I'm telling you that financial pressure is usually what kills it for people. And they'll go back to their old industry and they'll focus on the wrong things, which you should be doing tons of project work when you graduate. So when you go into a coding bootcamp with that mindset of focusing on quality in different areas and not the outcomes, it gives you more realistic expectations. And then goes back to what I said earlier. As long as you continue pushing forward, you will become a software engineer. It just might take more time. When you go into this industry with that mindset, you are going to be successful. That is my guarantee to you. That is the only guarantee that you should trust. If you go into it with a mindset that eventually you will get that position, and it might not be as quick as all these coding boot camps are promising, you are going to go in with a relief, way less pressure than a lot of students do. You will be able to pick up things. You will be able to retain them better. You will be able to apply them better in your projects and showcase really complex, impressive projects that employers care about. You now can start focusing on the right things. With good financial planning, realistic expectations, now coding bootcamps become a true accelerated educational experience that are no longer deceptive, right? Because now you ask the right questions, you're focusing on a lot of the right things. But if you focus on those outcomes, you're in for a world of hurt usually. I really nailed this, and I feel strongly about this. We'll catch up with chat, but let me know what you think. And then the last thing we'll go over is how to prepare for a coding bootcamp. I'm considering doing a boot camp, and I'm a junior year of computer science, Sharon. Do you feel like you can manage both your computer science courses and a coding boot camp? If you had to do it all over again, would you still choose App Academy, or would you choose another coding boot camp? I didn't choose App Academy. But the interesting thing is, after I did graduate the coding boot camp, myself and many others realized we didn't need a coding boot camp. I'm glad I went to it, but we didn't need one. This is very helpful. Thank you so much for all that information. You are welcome, Esther. I am talking about Launch School is definitely in that list. There are a lot of other coding boot camps, though. I have a lot of depth, a lot of private conversations I had after Launch School. I just decided to move on from the topic. I was going to do a whole video and kind of showcase everything. I'm bored of this. How can you find companies that hire bootcamp graduates? How do you do it? Through LinkedIn, or if so, how? It's hard to figure that out. What I would do is just look at who's working at the company. Did they come from a coding bootcamp? That's probably the best thing to do. All right, last thing. So here's the thing. Here's a main message I want to send to people. A lot of people, I mentioned all these things and how you shouldn't trust coding bootcamps, which is true. But on the flip side, a lot of people, and hopefully I narrowed it down, but a lot of people feel like there's so much information about coding bootcamps that are out there, and it becomes overwhelming. Paralysis by analysis. They feel paralyzed, unable to make a choice because there's so much information. This is just a skill in life you need to build in general. Like, this is a skill I need to build for my business. It's essentially destroying perfectionism of getting the perfect route and perfect result. And that's essentially what you're fighting against. But you have to realize most coding boot camps will get you 80% of the way there. They will give you that structure. They will give you a lot of guidance. Most coding boot camps will get you most of the way there. And if you graduate a coding boot camp and you realize, okay, you know what? They didn't really teach me React in depth and as well as I thought they would. I'm really going to have to build some projects with React. That's okay, because a lot of people will go to a coding boot camp because they just feel stuck. They feel paralyzed and they don't really know what direction to go into. And most coding boot camps will at least give you that structure and that outline. And they'll give you that support so you can ask some questions. And then when you graduate, take advantage of career services. But more importantly, like, you're going to continue coding, right? Just because you're 80% of the way there doesn't mean you wasted your money necessarily. It doesn't mean you're not going to get a job. It's like, take advantage of that. And like, you have that structure, keep pushing forward with it. It might take a few extra months to supplement, but sometimes that can mean you'd go to a cheaper coding bootcamp. I wouldn't say cheap coding boot camps are the best route or expensive coding boot camps aren't the best route. But if you find yourself in a situation where you felt a little bit shorted, supplement. You're probably going to be in a position where you know enough to everything that you need to learn to finally get that position. You just continue pushing forward, right? And so hopefully that can help a lot of people with this paralysis of going to a coding boot camp. A coding boot camp is not for everyone. It 100% is not for everyone. But I think a lot of people get stuck just trying to solidify that final path, and you just gotta keep pushing forward. It's like literally people will spend like a week straight looking up coding bootcamp stuff. They won't read or go through any course, look up any tutorials. They won't build any projects, and like it's this full force looking up which coding bootcamp to choose. It's like, that is the wrong mindset to have. My friend, you just got to keep moving forward. Like, that's it. You got to keep coding, pushing forward. Even if you have like the crappiest education, you supplement it. You do something else. There are a lot of free resources where you can continue pushing forward. It's like, you just got to keep pushing forward. That's it. If you want to look at coding bootcamps on the side, spend a little bit of time, that's great, but don't get stuck. It's like one of the silliest reasons to get stuck in your path. Unfortunately, a lot of people do. A lot of people get overwhelmed. Stop. I keep having a screen pop up. Can't see anything. I'll have to disable that. I thought I did already. But yeah, anyways, that's one of the final messages. So choose a coding bootcamp. And when you do finally choose, or don't, or just continue pushing forward with self-taught resources. But if you do finally make that choice of a coding bootcamp, now trust the process. Now is not the time to like do your own thing and say, you know what, screw this curriculum. They're doing things all wrong. It's like, you got to trust their process. You picked one, commit to it. The worst thing that you can do when you finally choose a program is to go against the grain. You're not going to get a lot of support from your mentors, your instructors, stuff like that. Just do what they're telling you to do, and then supplement on top of it a little bit if you need to. Do their advanced learning recommendations. Take the pre-work incredibly seriously. Prepare as much as you can, but also like ask them how to be the most successful student. Once you finally choose a program, commit to it. Trust the process, because if you don't, you're in for another world of pain. It's like, I teach people to be skeptical and be cautious and question all up until they finally sign on that dotted line. And then once you do, you got to make that commitment. You made a commitment, keep it, push forward with it. That's going to increase the chances that you're going to be successful and find that job once you actually do that. So one of the worst things you can do is to say, this isn't for, maybe you get a refund, maybe you do drop out or something like that. But if you continue pushing forward with the program, it's like, commit to it 100% and do what they say and excel at it and put extra hours in to try to really reinforce what you're learning. Whew, that's it. That's it. I feel like I probably even overcomplicated it with all of that. But that's kind of a general outline I would go with, right? And if you find yourself, like, I went into tons of detail. There are videos like 10 to 15 minutes only on the topic, and they touch on surface level things. If after this video you're still like, I don't know which one to choose, it's like, you're probably at that paralysis point at this point. Maybe take my final piece of advice. Sometimes a lot of people have this, in my opinion, it's a skill, but you have to build up the skill to be able to just execute and learn from your mistakes. A lot of people, quite frankly, need to just do that. Okay, yeah, that's it. Hopefully this is helpful. Never heard of paralysis by analysis. Exactly what I have. Butterpants, a lot of people have that name. Like, a lot of people have that name. No, a lot of people don't have your name. A lot of people have that problem. Tons of people are just stuck because there's too much information. It's an information overload. And that's the result of a lot of CEOs and founders just trying to gain a lot of money off the coding bootcamp industry. There's so many coding bootcamps. You know, there's so many coding bootcamps out there. A lot of people are stuck at that part. You didn't overcomplicate that last piece of advice is what someone like me needed, to be honest. Thanks. You're welcome, Butters. I'm just going to call you Butters. I'm a big, well, I used to be a big South Park fan. I think I'm becoming more of a South Park fan again. I just don't watch it a lot. But that's it. Hopefully this was helpful. I enjoyed it. And anyone that asks me, I swear, swear to God, if
You're a good dude, Don. We appreciate you, Don.
Yo, Dave Nagler, thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate that. $20. I really appreciate that, Dave. Damn. Damn, Dave coming up with that coming in with that $20. That's awesome. That makes me feel good. Evidently this conversation was a good one. Hopefully it was helpful. I really truly do hope this helped a lot of people. But yeah, thank you for the donation. I appreciate that. Thank you for all the support today. We got tons of support. But as I was saying, I swear to God, if anyone asked me that question of what is my top recommendation for a coding bootcamp, I'm going to lose it. I am sorry, but I'm being honest. This video was a result of that. There's a reason why I don't respond to those comments. There is no best coding bootcamp. Please, for the love of God, I am going to link this video. Almost every comment, I'm going to link this video and be like, watch this. I don't care if it's an hour and a half long. I want you to watch every second. You're going to find the answer at the end of that video. You got to the stream late? That's all right. You can watch the old one. Very helpful. Or the replay. Glad it was helpful. I am in New Camp at Treehouse. New Camp is the main source in Treehouse for the supplement. It really helps a lot. My full stack course ends in April, and I look forward to the future. That's awesome, Fabian. That's awesome. South Park is pretty based. In a time where people are incredibly extra sensitive, it just like, I find myself going back to South Park. It's a breath of fresh air. We gotta stop getting offended so often. Do you know how many comments? I should do a video on like all the comments. It's like, what are some of the ways people troll me? It's like, everyone thinks my hair is greasy. That's a common comment I've gotten. I literally like, I take a shower and then I guess it looks greasy afterwards and I do a live stream like that. I want more clever trolls. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, the comments that I've gotten from trolls are so stupid. It's like, I want to laugh. Why can't you, like, if you're going to be a troll, like, at least, like, double down and like, really be clever about your jokes. What else? Anyways, I want to do a video and just showcase some of the comments that, like, people are, like, personal stuff people say about me, and, I think it'd be fun. I think people are too sensitive nowadays. You'll definitely replay it. Good to hear. Good to hear. All right, that's it. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We will be live on Friday. 1:30 p.m. Central Time. We do this every Wednesday and Friday, 1:30 Central Time. Wednesdays are specific topics. I want to start getting into more controversial news, tech news and stuff like that. But for Wednesdays, and then Fridays are completely open-ended. How does one troll this type of channel? Every content creator has to get it. I don't know. I'm pretty candid, right? Do you know how many coding bootcamps I pissed off? Like, I'm not, I don't, like, obviously, right? I'm super critical of these programs. You know how many coding bootcamps and, like, super fans of these coding bootcamps I pissed off? Quite a lot. You guys would be surprised. But, I don't know. I think it's fun. All right, before I forget, I want to start thanking supporters. I don't have a lot of supporters, and so I do appreciate people that have been supporters for a long time. So anyone that subscribes on Twitch, on YouTube, Patreon, seriously, thank you so much for the support. I could start doing like individual donations. Maybe I'll look into that as well. But everyone that's supporting me monthly, it helps me do this full time. Seriously, super helpful. Thank you so much. We're going to be doing like a live Q&A. We're just going to hop in a private video chat, and we'll do a live Q&A with any subscriber from any of these platforms. We do it on Discord. It'll be, January 31st. I got to figure out a time, but we'll be doing it then. And then we do like a monthly live Q&A. So if you want more of a private setting and just hop into like a live video chat with, very few people, so we can go over a lot of questions, feel free to subscribe and you'll get access to that. Thanks, everyone. This is fun. Looking forward to Friday. Good stream today. I appreciate that, butters. Thanks, Don. Have a good one. You as well. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your night. Good luck on all of your projects, and happy coding. See ya.